Good morning, everyone. We are super excited to be back. Randy Mendez-Para and Sharon Thompson with Alameda Mortgage, and I'm with Mendez Home Team at eXp Realty. First show of the season, Money Matters. So, or of the year, right? Of the season, I guess the same difference. But first one of the year, Sharon, how are you?
I am fabulous. How about you?
I mean, I'm ready. I'm ready. I feel like 2021 is afoot, right? And I'm pretty excited about our topic today because today we're going to be talking about credit and really when are you ready to buy? When should you wait? And I got to tell you that especially this time of year, I kind of hear one of two responses from buyers. It's either like, okay, I want it to happen. Let's go. Let's make it happen. Or it's, okay, I'm going to wait. I'm going to get my credit better. I'm going to save some more money and then I'm going to buy a house. So I really like the topic because I think that as people are kind of goal setting and just thinking about what they want to do this year, I think it's important for them to understand, basically how that purchasing power works and when they should buy or if they should work on their credit further. Are you
Can you hear
muted? I
me?
don't know if I had, yeah, I didn't know
Okay.
if I had you muted.
Exactly. I mean, we've talked about credit repair with a lot of our clients. We've talked about prepping them for success. I had a call this morning with somebody with a no score, and we talked about, what do we do with that? Where do we go with that? What does that mean? Um, I think that people have a big misconception when it comes to credit and what you can afford in a home. So I think we have to put a plan together. You have to put that roadmap together in order to figure out, is the time right now? Or like you said, I hear that a lot too. Oh, I wanted to get some more debt paid off. I wanted to save up a little bit longer for a house. In fact, a client that we closed in December, we'd been talking to him this summer, and he said, well, I want to get more of like a 10 or 20% down payment. 6 months later, he still put 3.5% down. So he never got the 10 or 20%. So we have to be realistic of what is our budget. I know that you are part of Dave Ramsey, and that's a big thing he talks about. What is your budget? How much can you save, and how can you get there? And if we're not talking about those things today, then when May comes, still may not be at your goal.
Right. Well, and I think people don't know. I think, something that you said too was you talked to somebody with no credit score today, right? And I have clients that, and even that client was like, okay, people are telling me I'm going to have to go ahead and create all this credit. And I have absolutely closed clients that didn't have a credit score. And it took some manual underwriting and it took some extra layers and establishing of trade lines. But it is absolutely 100% possible. And I think that that's the big thing that's interesting to me. I'm actually, I have a virtual book club that is open to anybody if you want to join, Page Turners. But the first book that we're reading is The 12-Week Year. And inside of the 12-week year, it just kind of talks about this, like in the planning, and how interesting it is that people spend this abundant amount of time planning for a vacation. Like people are going to go on a 1-week vacation and they spend like 5 months planning the 1-week vacation, but they absolutely put no planning into like their life or their finances. Like who sits down and maps out like their purchase process for a week? Like honestly, we probably don't. We kind of fly by the seat of our pants. And a lot of times I think that's what makes it not happen, is because we actually haven't just sat down and mapped out a plan. Because once you do that, you realize that it's probably much easier than you actually thought. You just didn't know the steps to get there.
Exactly. So what is step one? Step one, in my opinion, is, a lot of people, when I talk to them, I say, do you know what your credit score is? And they say, well, on Credit Karma, which Credit Karma is a great jump off point. Your Wells Fargo generated credit score. These are all great jump off points. For me personally, I had on Wells Fargo a 700 credit score. I'm like, I'm in excellent shape. I am doing my own refinance, pulled my credit, a collection popped up, and all of a sudden my credit score dropped below 700. So, and a collection I didn't even know about. It was from when I moved. It went to the wrong address. The whole song and dance. I've heard it a million times from other people. I deal with it myself. But the point is that the Wells Fargo and Credit Karma are chumming out over a 700 credit score for myself personally. And then this new collection popped up, which pushed my credit below that 600 mark. So even though you think, okay, I've got a 700 credit score, I think this, I think that, it's first and foremost, let's pull your credit. What are we looking at? What are we dealing with? Huge misconception out there that when a mortgage representative pulls your credit, that your credit score is going to drop. That's a huge misconception. What people have to look at is a mortgage pull is to buy an asset. The difference is that when you get hard pulls from going to Best Buy, your Ashley Furniture, and you're pulling up all this what could be possible debt, that is what's going to affect your credit, not when you're looking to buy an asset. So a mortgage pull is not going to affect you the same way.
Right, right. Which is, I think, also important. And here's the thing. I think sometimes, just being honest, I think sometimes that can be vulnerable, and it can be like one of those moments that, like, not everybody is, we haven't really been taught this. Let's just be really honest. Like, we're not teaching our children. We're putting them into a world where credit is like highly utilized, but we're not teaching them the basic fundamentals of how to even build credit. And so a lot of times I just have clients that are just, it's kind of like embarrassing, or it's vulnerable, even if they don't know where it's going to be. And so I think that first and foremost is kind of getting out of your own head and out of your own way and saying, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get it, because then when you start getting that data, it can become empowering. I know for me, once I was able to start making traction, it was like, then I became addicted to doing the right things. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I don't want to mess up. Like, I don't want to mess up. I'm doing the right thing. And I know that the right thing results in, a good result. And so, yeah, I think that that's good. So what would be step 2? So now we have our credit pooled, and I mean, that's going to go that could go a plethora of different ways, right?
Absolutely. So Credit Karma sometimes will be right on. It's not always wrong. Sometimes it's low and sometimes it's high. So the first things first is, what does that real score look like? You got to go through your credit line by line. And like you said, sometimes it's exactly what you thought it was going to be. And then other times we're having to review what it is and what are the next steps. And there's a lot of quick, easy fixes, which is, oh, I let my credit cards get a little out of hand for the holidays, so it's just going to pay some credit cards down. And then maybe it's some collections that we're looking at. But the next step is what does your credit look like? We've pulled it. How does that affect you when it comes to terms of rates? What rate can you get? Can we make changes to improve the credit? And what are those changes? And sometimes we don't need to make any changes. Sometimes it's better than what we thought, or exactly what we thought. Sometimes that debt that you charged up over the holidays doesn't affect you at all when it comes to your purchase power. And then other times we do have to put that map together for a 3 or 6 month plan to fix it and get into that home.
So I think that that's a good question, because I know that that's a question I'm getting a lot, is should I just keep working on my credit, or should I buy? So, I mean, is there really, and I kind of want to lean on you as a professional for this one, because I know that there's a lot of variables, but is there kind of just a, like one line that you could draw in the sand that answers that question, if you should keep working on your credit or if you should buy?
I think it's going to be, it is definitely case by case, but I would say that 90% of the time, the answer is let's just buy. So I'll give you a really good example. For instance, we have a client that their credit score, if they pay down $10,000 in debt, they could get a better interest rate. Or they could pay 1 percentage point, they could pay a point and get that same exact rate. Well, when you're talking about a $300,000 loan, that point is $3,000.
And
So
the
do we,
debt is 10.
and when you're talking about a client who maybe makes 70, 80, $90,000 a year, they have a family of 5, how long is it going to take them to save up $10,000 that could go towards a down payment?
Right.
Or should we just pay that percentage point? So does the does it does the time in trying to repair your credit outweigh just getting into a home? So like I said, it was a $3,000 to buy the 1 point for the same exact interest rate that would have cost them $10,000 in debt. What's going to happen in the meantime to try to pay off that $10,000 in debt? What can they commit every month to pay down that debt? So what does that timetable look like?
Right. Well, and that could also be a setback, because like you said, especially if that is their money that they're going to use for that down payment, and then they use it to pay off the debt. And so I think one of the big takeaways, one of the first, on our first point here, is that, again, it's just important to get all of the information. I can tell you, Sharon, every time I've ever made a decision with a lack of data, it has been a poor decision. Hence why I'm 40 in braces. So, I just was like, oh, you're the professional. And I just trusted the person in front of me. And from the bottom of my heart, heart, like that is one of the biggest pieces of advice that I like to give people is, dive in, be a sponge, ask questions, collect all the data, lean into the professionals, because really, I mean, at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to empower you to be the decision makers, but we want to make sure that you are informed enough and that you actually have the data to make the right decision for you. Because I think that, this is a lot like when I'm talking to clients. And for instance, another client of ours, we're looking at a second home property for them, and we got countered back a little bit higher, and than we wanted to. And it wasn't tremendous, but it was about $5,000. And by no means do I want to downplay $5,000, because $5,000 is $5,000, right? But when they asked me, like, well, do you think we should counter that again? Or do you think we should accept it? I mean, I had to say, like, it depends how you look at the $5,000. If you're looking at the $5,000 as $5,000, I mean, that's you're going to feel emotionally a certain way. But if you look at the $5,000 on a payment level, and I always tell, them, I leave these numbers to you, Sharon. But I mean, what are we talking about? Like $27 a month? I mean, really? Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's just look at it a little bit different. Now we're talking about $27 a month. If you don't get this house and you didn't get it for $27 a month, how do you feel? And they're like, oh, I'm paying $5, right? Most people are like, oh, I'll pay 10, I'll pay 50, right? Because they're like, double it, I'll pay double that to get it. And so I think sometimes it's just important to lean into the professionals and make sure that we're helping you to have the data, but not just have the data, but to look at different aspects of it. Sharon, I also own a coaching company, a real estate coaching company, and we held an event right on the cusp of before COVID actually hit. It was our last live event. And one of the speakers, and this will speak to my silliness a little bit, but she kept talking about this soccer ball analogy. And she kept saying, I'm holding the soccer ball, and what you see and I see is different. And of course, I'm sitting in the audience and I'm like, I mean, it's a black and white soccer ball. Like in my head, I'm like, no, it's not. Well, I realized she was talking about like a colored ball. And basically, if you turn it, you see a different perspective. And that was something that was like a powerful visual for me just on our clients, because they might know, like, okay, I have $10,000. I have this credit score. I'm on the marge, like I'm on the cusp, I can get approved. And then they just like, it's funny because they'll have, okay, my lease is up this day. So they have all this data, and then they make a decision. And sometimes I'm just like, how did you work through the data to get that decision? Because it'll be like, oh, I'm going to wait 3 years and I'm going to save an extra $100,000. And I'm like, where's the $100,000 coming from? Where's that happening?
Right. Exactly. And so I think we have to be realistic with our budget. What can we accomplish in 6 months or 3 months? What does that loan process look like today? Because also sometimes it's a matter of, we can only get your score up 20 points. Is there a big difference between a 640 and a 660? Let's run the numbers on interest rates. I had a client he had a 680 and he's like, I want to get it over a 700. I said, it doesn't make a difference in your interest rate. It literally is exactly the same. I priced it both ways. So why are you hell bent on getting this done before we buy a home? Because in the meantime, you and I both know, what could they be putting towards principal? That's essentially a savings account for yourself. What's happening with the rates, which they're going up? What's happening with the housing market? It's going up. So does that risk outweigh the reward? And I would tell you, if we're saying, do I wait or do I go for it? The only way to know is to truly have that conversation with a mortgage professional, period. Because I would say 90% of the time, the answer is we shouldn't wait. The answer is your credit's fine. We have a product here. We have a loan here. What are we waiting for? So sorry, lost my train of thought. So that's what I have to say.
No, don't worry. That happens to me actually. When I was on that story, I was like, God, please give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. I know there's a point. So I was thankful when he did. But, so no, and I agree. And, sometimes I think, so here's the thing. I think it's an individual thing. And I think it's important. I obviously work with clients all over the spectrum. So you mentioned, Dave Ramsey, and I absolutely have the heart of a teacher. I teach Financial Peace University. I believe biblical principles around finances and money. And so, because of that, I have a large amount of clients that they practice those, and I want to be honoring of that. I want to be honoring of their beliefs and where they are. And so I work really hard, and I partner alongside people like you that are also going to work hard to make sure that we're knowledgeable within what they want to do and what they want to build, because 9 times out of 10, we're looking at a 15-year mortgage versus a 30-year, or we're looking at, trade lines instead of credit lines. And so it is a little bit of a different process. But I think that the thing that, we really want to convey here is just how important it is to actually get going with a plan and to actually lean in and have the conversation, right? Now, Sharon, you obviously gave me whatever you had because I was going somewhere and now I lost my thought. So I had a really good bullet point, like a really good one that was going to be like, fire, but now it is like water because it's gone.
And I would say to touch on that is that you're right. Today might not be the day to buy, but if your thought process is, okay, I just want to pay off this debt, I just want to do that. The one thing that we've talked about multiple times with clients is paying off that debt your best use of the money, or is it this debt? How much of that debt you need to pay off? So you're right, today might not be the day, but if you don't actually have a solid plan from a professional, you might be going down the whole wrong rabbit hole and chasing down the wrong things as opposed to chasing down all the right things. And that plan is huge. And sometimes it's a 30-day plan and sometimes it's a year-long plan. And especially when we talk about first-time home buyers. First-time home buyers, that might be a 6-month to a year plan to save up their money. What debts are you going to pay off? But if you don't talk to a professional, you really might have a completely wrong plan.
Well, I love that you saved that because steps was where I was going, was that sometimes you just have to, it's one of those things that sometimes you just have to step out on, a leap of faith, and you have to actually take the first step to actually start the journey. And I can tell you that I was just talking about this with one of my clients the other day. I've only had one client that really was just never willing to move. And I'll probably never forget this client just because it sticks out in my head so much. And I remember that they got, first she came to me and it was the mother-in-law who was getting approved, but the daughter-in-law was actually kind of the one that was going to pick the house, right? And for whatever reason, she had already started looking at homes about the $400,000 to $500,000 mark, which, side note, something I always do is suggest that you talk to us before you start looking at houses, because we like to protect you from getting, deflated. And so side note, but back to this, she had started looking at homes around $400,000 to $500,000. And please keep in mind, at this time, the median purchase price was about $220,000. So she was looking at double the median. Okay. And we got her in, and I, got her mother-in-law to lending, and she ended up getting approved at about $170,000, which, again, at this time, you could purchase a starter home, an entry-level home, for about $170,000. And I got to tell you, I worked really hard to try to kind of reel those expectations in and just talk about, okay, let's evaluate this. I understand this is what you're approved for now, and this is not what you want now. But can we look at an avenue as a step in, right? You sometimes have to make the step in to actually present yourself more options in the future. And if you don't take one step, you won't have 5 other options in the future. Long story short, I could never get her to move. This was, several years back, probably 10 years back in my career. And so who knows, maybe I could have now, and maybe, a partner could have better informed her. But the reason she stands out in my mind is because at that same time, I had about 4 other families who were in similar situations, kind of by the skin of their teeth, kind of like, okay, do I wait? Don't I wait? And they took that step. They took the one step that got them into home ownership, that got them to stop paying money in rent, right? Got them in a payment. They had solid employment. They, it made sense for them, and it may not have been what they wanted, but it was secure and the numbers made sense and they could handle the payment. So they took the step. And since then, I've got to tell you, one set of families, one of the families that bought together, it was like a parents and a child that bought together, they actually moved up. And so they moved up twice, and they kind of have like a big family compound now, and moved up twice. Another one has moved up and relocated. Another one diversified and ended up with an investment property. And so it just kind of powerful to think, and I still have that other person's number to this day. And I would be lying with you if I didn't say it was kind of like, it's kind of a hard call, because I still would love to help them get into home ownership. My heart to help with that hasn't changed, but neither has their purchase power. And guess what? $170,000 today isn't getting us anything in our market, nothing, you know? And so again, you know, we always want you to be financially responsible. We want you to be a good steward of your money and not, you know, make irresponsible decisions. But we do want you to understand that sometimes if you can understand that a little bit of upfront sacrifice is going to get you in the game and the long-term payoff is going to really give you that reward, it's important because like I said, you know, that particular family told me, nope, we're going to work on a few things. We're going to get our credit, and they've strengthened their credit, and they have, you know, kind of increased income a little, but not to the point that they could ever outperform the equity or outrun the market, because even though they did things, and honestly, I bet you today we'd probably get them at 280. Honestly, we'd probably get them at 280, 290. But guess what? That's not much different from the problem we had when they were 170, because they were half the median then. And guess what? They're still at half the median now. And so the problem is still the same, even though the numbers changed.
Exactly. I mean, I agree. How many clients have we had? One of the very first top, you know, with first 5 questions I ask a client is, what is your ideal payment? And a lot of times they'll give me this ideal payment and their purchase price is $100,000 over what that ideal payment is. And it's like, so here they are for 6 months looking on Zillow at, like you said, $400,000 and $500,000 homes when their purchase power might only be 350. So that's why step one, let's pull the credit. Let's see what we're looking at. Step two is, what is our plan going forward? How do we get you into a home? And how do we work within your budget and your family to get you to those goals?
Without a doubt.
You're muted. You're muted.
Well, you know, my problem is I'm a double clicker. So I'm like, okay, it's off. And then I click twice so that it's back on. So I'm just so excited to say that, you know, exactly that. But we're excited. You know, something I love about Sharon is that she shares the passion of having a heart as a teacher. And we're not here to sell anybody on anything, but we absolutely want to make sure that people are out here making informed decisions. For me personally, I am the person that is super passionate about the first-time home buyer. I love move-up clients as well. And don't get me wrong, I got a little niche going in Almanor, and I'm excited for the second home market as well. But, you know, my heart is with that person that just didn't even know that homeownership was possible. For my in-laws, they've been hard workers for a lifetime. I think I have a connection. Okay, I think I have a delay. All right, are you there, Sharon? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I hear you saying yes, but I think you were muted. But anyways, that is our heart. We want to come alongside you and we want to help you. And there's a lot of great professionals, real estate professionals, lender professionals. So if you have, you know, a family member or a friend or somebody that you've been referred to, pick up that phone call, you know, that phone, have the phone call and start the process. And I just have to chuckle because one of our mutual clients is chiming in here, Sharon, and he's saying, I don't remember being asked that particular question. And he's 100% kidding. He's 100% joking. Antonio thinks he is hilarious. And Antonio is a perfect example of you want to chime in here. I'm going to use you as an example. But let me tell you, he is a perfect example of somebody that got off the fence. When I showed him his first home, the median was about 200,000. And he was like, I don't know. I don't really know if I need a house. I don't know if I like whatever. He was kind of nonchalant. And I was like, well, let's look at it this way. And he took the plunge. And that house today is probably easily at, you know, well over 400,000.
Mm-hmm.
Today, Antonio sits with multiple properties, with an investment property, with a beautiful new primary residence. And so he likes to give us a hard time, and he likes to really, really, you know, he is probably, if I had an award for like the client that harasses me the most, he would get it. But
Same.
he's sitting in a great position, right? He's sitting in an awesome position.
Absolutely.
With equity. So he has 2 homes, and I promise you they both have equity. So anyways, guys, this has been Money Matters. Today was just a conversation about, you know, should I, shouldn't I? And the answer is pick up the phone. So we would love and be honored to just get to be that resource if you don't already have somebody. Again, Randy Mendez with Mendez Home Team at eXp Realty, Sharon Thompson, Alameda Mortgage, and we are both able to serve your real estate needs and lending needs in the Reno or in the Nevada, California area. So let us know if we can help you out, right, Sharon?
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
Happy Friday.
I'll see you next Friday.
Okay.
All right. Bye.